Welcome to ACCQ Continuing Professional Education. We're going to talk about auditing, audit of receivables. So this is quite a diverse subject kasi medyo malawak ang receivables. No? So para sa mga accounting students, stay tuned and we're about to begin. Okay, so without much ado, we'll now proceed to the audit of receivables. Let's take a look what are the salient features first, the objectives of audit of receivables. First is to determine that receivables represent valid claims against customers and other parties and have been properly recorded. Now we would talk about why this happens, some conflict in recording sales transactions, especially if the sales department is pressured to, let's say attain a certain quota, that they would resort to some of this, yung mga bogus na tinatawag. So we're going to talk about it. So that's why there is a need to audit receivables, no? The related allowance for doubtful accounts returns and allowances and discounts are reasonably adequate. So we make sure that yung mga allowance for doubtful accounts, no? Okay, yung contra asset account, such and of course yung returns and allowances na they are matched properly against the accounts receivable para naman makuha natin yung tinatawag na net realizable value, no? Kasi receivables is nothing unless na makukolekta mo yun, no? Receivables are properly described. So we're going to talk about that in a while. And disclosure with respect to the accounts receivables are adequate, no? Kasi hindi natin alam, baka mamaya yung receivables na yun, merong iba pang nagkiklaim doon, or let's say a notes receivable has been yung bang na-dishonored, no? Okay, so those things, no? Okay, and some of those receivables are, let's say, yung bang umaabot na ng 5 taon na hindi na nagbabayad yung customer pero laki pa rin ng receivables, no? Okay, as a consultant of some companies, I know I've encountered those issues with regard to receivables. So napakahalaga nito, no? Okay, now, what are the audit procedures that we must take? First is to obtain a list of aged accounts receivable balances from the subsidiary ledger. So we're going to look for those accounts that are, way past yung bang the regular accounting period, no? Okay, and we have to categorize them according to the age of those receivables, no? Kasi baka mamaya yung mga receivables na yon, yung mga customers na yon, they have no plans of paying the company, no? So one of the procedures under that is to foot and cross-foot the list. So tignan natin. So we will check those balances, no? Okay, yung footing, no? Okay, and then cross-foot the list. Check if the list reconciles with the general ledger control account. So yung subsidiary ledger, which are the details of the customer. So kumbaga, ito-total yon, and if it reconciles with the general ledger control account, yung pinaka-total na, no, ng receivables, no? Okay, so nandun yung mga items, mga customers, no? Trace individual balances to the subsidiary ledger. So this is also a sound audit procedure. No? So when you trace yung individual balances, you go to the details of those the items in the subsidiary ledger, no? Per customer to, halimbawa, say customer A, customer B, customer C, and so forth. Test accuracy of the aging of receivables. So, yan, tinitignan natin kasi yung aging represents the time, the length of time that the receivables have not yet been um, collected. No? Okay, yung mga accuracy nito. No? Adjust non-trade accounts erroneously included in customers' accounts, mga non-trade, no? Okay, because as we talk about accounts receivable, we're only talking about yung mga customers, yung trade customers. So there might be some items, yung mga non-trade, which are not supposed to be included in the trade receivables of the customer accounts. Also, investigate and reclassify significant. Okay? And next is yung test accuracy of balances appearing in the subsidiary ledger. Whether these balances are really purport to be the total of those customers, no, yung per customers na yun, yung accuracy niya, no? So confirm accuracy of individual balances by direct communication with customers. So one of the best, if not the best, audit procedure in terms of audit for receivables, audit of receivables, is by confirming to third parties yung bang labas na dun sa company, because it is less likely that they will be biased, no? Okay, so the company may say otherwise while the customer may be more detached from the company, no? You do this by investigating exceptions reported by customers. Ayan, so yung mga exceptions, no, na ni-report ng customers, no. Okay, let's say may mga kumbaga mga sobra na na yung bang napalaki yung kanilang payable, no. Okay, and discuss with appropriate officer for proper disposal. And send a second request for positive confirmation request without any replies from customer, kasi kung minsan pagka one of the procedures is we email or we sa ngayon siyempre email na lang, no, okay, for positive confirmation, so whether this amount is really kumbaga nag-exist pa or may babayaran siya na gano'n, no. Okay, sometimes wala silang reply, no? So if the second request does not produce a reply from the customer, perform extended procedures, no? So hindi ka kagad magja-jump into conclusion na hindi nag-exist tong customer na these are not valid claims by the company. Okay, so these extended procedures would include reviewing collections after year end. Okay, so yung mga collections na yan, kung saan ba nanggagaling? Of course, siyempre yung collection na yon may pinanggalingan yon sa mga receivables, no? So titignan natin kung saan nanggaling yon, no, yung mga receivables. Baka yun, no, kumbaga isa doon sa mga customers na yon. Checking supporting documents. So whether these documents are whether this collections are supported by documents, no? So discussing the account with appropriate office. Okay, so mari sa collection department, no? Okay, so what is the propriety of this collection, no, from yung kasi yung collection sila yung in charge dun sa receivables, no, as far as yung pagkolekta nung receivables, no. Okay, so somehow alam nila kung sino yung customer na yon, no? Okay, which should be recorded also in the accounting, no? Discuss with appropriate officer confirmation requests returned by the post office and perform extended procedures. Ayan. So yung mga confirmation request that does not get any reply, you know. Okay, so whether those confirmation, no, kasi it might also, you know, it might also give rise to the the question na ito bang mga customer na to are really existing, or you know, because you know you cannot sometimes when there is an opportunity to perpetrate a fraud, like for example yung bang na pressure yung sales team, no, okay, na ma-reach nila yung certain quota. Okay, and upon reaching that certain quota, no, that's the only time that they would be rewarded. No, let's say for example they have to reach 3 million per week. Okay, 3 million pesos per week, and nandun pa lang sila 1 million, so they might put some customers, bogus customers doon sa sales, no, in order to increase yung kanilang yung sales, no, okay, yung kanilang credit sales, no, in which case they would be given some yung commissions, no. Okay, kaya nga may sabi commission o audit, no. Yung ano niya, no. Okay, so those things are quite, you know, that happen is in an office, no, sa isang company. And then prepare a summary of confirmation results. Moving forward, review correspondence with customers for possible adjustments. So sometimes the customer would let's say for example, of course the customer on the side of the customer, sila yung magbabayad, no. Okay, so kung malaking receivables nila, it's more likely that they will complain than that of yung kanilang receivables are just yung bang tama, okay, or yung mas maliit, no. Okay, so in such circumstances, no, we might be able to determine as far as the correspondence with the customers, no. Okay, kasi diyan sila ano, diyan makikita yung mga, let's say receivables that are not valid claims by the company, no. Okay, and might be a possible adjustment. So ito ina-adjust to dun sa financial statement nila. Test propriety of the cut-off. And so first, examine sales recorded and shipments made the week before and after the end of the reporting period, and ascertain whether the sales were recorded in the proper period. So ito yung assertion, yung cut off, no. Okay, yung bang completeness, no? Okay, so whether those by examining sales recorded and shipments made a week before and after, okay, the end of the reporting period. Halimbawa, December 31, no? So 1 week. Okay, so made 1 week before and after the reporting period, which is December 31. So para lang makita nila yung dapat na i-record dun sa tamang period na yon ay na kumbaga napapasama, and ascertain whether the sales were recorded in the proper period. Investigate large amounts of sales returned shortly after the end of the reporting period. And so one of the issues, no? Okay, yung mga sales returns, especially after the reporting period. Perform analytical procedures. By the way, no, especially this one, no, I'd like to to highlight this one. Itong investigate large amounts of sales returns shortly after the end of the reporting period. No? Okay, because some companies would like their sales to be, you know, to be big or to be large, no? Okay, that they have sales. Pero yung iba pala doon may mga returns na, no? Okay, so investigate whether those returns are properly recorded dun sa ano na yun, no? Okay, baka mamaya kasama siya before the cut-off. Okay, which is December 31. Next is perform analytical procedures like gross profit ratio. And so these are normally done by the auditor himself, no? Herself, as the case may be. Accounts receivable turnover. Okay, so ito yung mga ratio na to, yung bang kung gaano yung ano, yung bang yung ikot ng receivables, no? Yung pagbalik, no? Okay, so these are some of them are management accounting or financial management techniques. Ratio of accounts written off to sales or balance of accounts receivable. Yan. Okay, mga accounts written off to sales or balance of accounts receivable and compare with prior year and industry average. So yeah, titingnan natin if it's normal yung bang analytical procedures natin with prior years, no? Okay, kung wala naman masyado mga fluctuations yan. No? Okay, because any significant fluctuations are, may give rise to further investigation. No? You should know yung variance na yon. No? Okay. Next is yung review individual balances and each of accounts with appropriate officers and determine what are those accounts that should be written off. Okay, because some of the accounts now, like for example, I have a consultancy client who has hundreds of millions of receivables, but half of those receivables have been already from way back from the 90s. No, could you imagine that? Nandun pa rin siya. No? Okay, so probably they have to write off those, a big percentage of those receivables. Determine adequacy of allowance for doubtful accounts. So whether itong mga ano to, ano, yung mga whether those receivables are matched properly with the allowance, no, in order to get yung net realizable value, and obtain analysis of significant other receivables, certain whether some receivables are pledged. Yeah, so we need disclosure dito, no, sa mga ganon. So that's why notes to financial statement are important, no? So in order to check whether those receivables might be pledge factored, no? So receivable financing. Now I have a video on that one. You can check in this in our videos, no? Okay, mga so there's I will provide a link later with that. No? And determine propriety of financial statements presentation and adequacy of disclosure. Okay, so like we said a while ago, disclosure is important kasi baka mamaya naka-assign siya o naka-factor, okay, so binenta na pala yung receivables, so we don't know, no? Okay, or it's not properly classified, no? Especially if it's assigned, or let's say yung bang without recourse, no? Okay, factoring, those things. And obtain receivable presentation letter from a client. Because it's third party, no? So hindi siya bias for the company. So most likely, no, sasabihin niya kung ano yung alam niya. Okay, now let's proceed now to the problems. Okay, now It says here, the December 31, 2020 statement of financial position of ACPAC company. You know what ACPAC is? It is a software, an accounting software. Included the following information. So we have accounts receivable at 672,000, and then less allowance for doubtful accounts for 42,300. So meron siyang net realizable value of 629,700. And aside from accounts receivable, it also has notes receivable for 65,400. So the total receivables is 695,100. So it says here, the company is contingently liable for discounted notes receivable of 114,000. Contingently liable for discounted notes receivable of 140. Okay, let's move forward. During the year ending December 31, 2021, the following transactions occurred. So ito, no? Okay, so sales on credit, that's number one, the sales on credit is 2,623,800. So ito yung nangyari, no? Okay, as of 2021. And then collection of accounts receivable for 2,523,000. So we're going to do some journal entries, no? Prepare some journal entries. Number three is accounts receivable written off as uncollectible. And for 41,400. So we're going to set up, no? Or we're going to prepare a journal entry for the write-off of the accounts receivable, no? Okay, and then notes receivable collected, that's 87,000. Okay, and then customer notes, number 5, customer notes received in payment of accounts receivable, that's 216,000. Okay, and then next is yung notes receivable discounted that were paid at maturity, 108,000. So mamaya mag-entry natin yung journal entries, no? Okay, so pinapakita lang natin yung overview, no? And then notes receivable discounted that were defaulted, including interest of 60 pesos and 15 pesos. This amount is expected to be collected during 2022. So ito, meron siyang interest kasi na ano siya, yung bang parang na dishonored, no? Yung kanyang notes receivable. So i-revert natin to sa accounts receivable, no? Okay, so para mababaliwala yung accounts, yung notes receivable dito, no? Okay, so mamaya we're going to make or prepare an entry for that. And then proceeds from customer notes discounted with recourse. Yan, so the principal is 135,000 and the accrued interest of 600 pesos. So for 135,225. So ito yung proceeds, no? Okay, so nag-discount proceeds from customer notes discounted with recourse, no? Okay, so ito yung natanggap ng company. Mamaya i-reflect natin yan through journal entry. And then collections on accounts previously written off. So we will set up again allowance for doubtful accounts dyan, no? And of course, yung receivables, no? Ibabalik natin yon. Sales returns and allowances on credit sales at 6,000. And finally, increase in allowance for credit loss. Okay, so, or yung doubtful accounts for 39,357. So based on the foregoing information, determine the balances of the following accounts at December 31, 2021. So which is yung accounts receivable, allowance for doubtful accounts, notes receivable, and notes receivable discounted. So medyo marami to, no? Okay, so these are practically yung bang quite a comprehensive problem, no? Because it also involves, aside from accounts receivable and allowance for doubtful accounts, it also has yung notes receivable sa itong notes receivable discounted. So, gagawa muna tayo ng entry dito. Yun yung first approach natin. Ito. From numbers 1 to 11. Okay, so we're going to prepare a journal entry for the preceding transactions. No? Okay, starting with number 1. So sales and credit for 2,623,800. Yan. Okay, so entry number 1 is debit accounts receivable for 2,623,800. Yan, yung nakalagay dito, no? Sales on credit. So, i-recognize natin yan, no? By debiting accounts receivable and credit sales first for the same amount of 2,623,800. So the second the second entry, collections of accounts receivable. Ayan. Okay, so that's for 2,523,000. So we will have a debit of cash for 2,523,000 and credit accounts receivable for 2,523,000. Okay, now the third one, accounts receivable written off as uncollected, uncollectible. No? Okay, accounts receivable written off as uncollectible. Ayan, so we're going to take that up. Number 3, debit allowance for doubtful accounts. Now, normally the balance of allowance for doubtful accounts is a credit. Since ni-write off siya, ibig sabihin wala na, hindi na rin makukolekta. So tatanggalin na natin siya dun sa allowance for doubtful accounts by debiting it, no? Remember, allowance for doubtful accounts is a contra asset account, no? Which is ang normal balance yan is credit. Okay? Now, if we write off, dinidebit natin. So parang tinatanggal na natin siya because of the write off, no? So for 41,400, and of course, we will write off the receivable for 41,400. Yan. Okay? Because the normal balance of receivables being an asset is debit. But since we're writing it off, so i-credit natin. Okay. Next number 4. Notes receivable collected for 87,000. Okay, so notes receivable collected for 87,000. So there's a collection, so there must be cash. Debit for 87,000 and credit, of course, na-collecta na. No? Parang sa bank record, pag na-collecta na, i-credit na yung notes receivable for also the same amount, 87,000. Okay, and then the next one, customer notes received in payment of accounts receivable. Yan. So, customer, na-receive nung company, no? Okay, para bang hindi naman nakabayad yung customer, no? Dito lang, kumbaga para lang to reinforce yung receivable, nag-issue yung customer ng notes receivable, no? So tatanggalin natin siya sa accounts receivable. Kumbaga parang in payment of the accounts receivable, no? So parang inilagay lang natin siya doon sa notes receivable. So debit notes receivable for 216,000. Pero wala pa talagang bayad na natanggap, no? Nag-ano lang, no? Ni-reclassify lang into notes receivable and credit 216,000 accounts receivable. And then number 6, yan. So this one, which is notes receivable discounted that were paid at maturity. Yan. So discounted that were paid at maturity. Okay, so debit, so binayaran na. Okay, so debit, notes receivable discounted This is for 108,000 and notes receivable. Yan. So pina-discount kasi itong notes receivable, no. So for 108,000. Yan. Okay. And then so tinatanggal lang natin siya sa notes receivable. So nilalagay natin siya sa notes receivable discounted. Now, if you want to check yung some of the lessons in notes receivable, I have a link placed somewhere here, somewhere in the video. So notes receivable discounted that were defaulted, including interest of 60 and a 15 peso fee. This amount is expected to be collected during 2022. Now, this one, itong na to, okay, dishonored note to, no? Kasi sometimes yung company nag-enter into into notes receivable, yung bang receivable financing para lang mapabilis yung collection, para mapera na nila, no? Okay, so pinapa-discount nila ito sa bangko or any financial institution, no? So kaya kina-classify as notes receivable discounted, no? So tinatanggal yung portion doon na diniscount from the notes receivable, no? Okay, so by debiting it to notes receivable discounted. Now, pagka ganitong na dishonor, no? Ibig sabihin, so when a promissory note matures and is not paid, it is said to be dishonored. Yan. So theoretically, dishonored notes receivable should be removed from the notes receivable account and transferred to accounts receivable. So the amount debited to accounts receivable should include the face amount of 6,000 plus yung 60 and 15. Okay, so which is in total is 6,075, no? So this is the entry for number 7. Ayan. So ibabalik ulit natin 'yon, kumbaga nawalan ng saysay yung notes receivable. So nilagay natin ulit sa accounts, yung kumbaga ordinary accounts receivable, and we credit cash, no? Okay, kasi well hindi naman nakabayad, no? Okay, so that's the reason why, no? Okay, pero meron pa tayong entry dito. Debit for notes receivable discounted. Ayan. For 6,000 and credit notes receivable. So tinanggal natin sa notes receivable. Ayan. Okay. So ito yung entry natin. No? Okay. Number 8. So proceeds from customer notes discounted with recourse. Yan. So principal of 135,000 plus accrued interest. So ito yung natanggap ng company, yung 135,225, no? Okay. Now the value of the note, the principal is 135,000 and the accrued interest is 600. The accrued interest, ito yung nagbe-bear ng interest, no? Ito yung dapat matanggap nung company. Kaya lang minsan hindi yun yung natatanggap, no? Okay, so that's why eto muna. Let's take up this entry. So debit cash for 135,225. Okay, and debit notes receivable discounted. So the notes receivable discounted is yung 135,000. Now, as we can see, meron tayo dito okay, so 135,000. And the interest income is 600 pesos. Okay, now, of course, the balancing figure here would be a loss. Okay, now here's the computation for that. So yung proceeds na tanggap natin, that is 135,225. So it was given sa problem, no? and yung carrying value ng note was 135,600. Okay, so 135,000 yung principal plus yung accrued interest of 135. So merong loss on discounting of 375,000. And then number 9, ito. Okay, number 9 is collections of accounts receivable previously written off. That's 1,500. Yan. Okay, so just debit accounts receivable for 1,500. Yan. I-write off. Tapos na-recover. So ibabalik natin sa accounts receivable. And then credit allowance for doubtful accounts 1,500. So isinet up ulit natin yung allowance for doubtful accounts. That's number 9. Next is yung sales returns and allowances. On credit sales, that's 6,000. Okay, 6,000 pesos. Okay, sales returns on credit sales for 6,000. So, lalagay natin dito. By the way, no? Okay, meron pala tayo dito na, since na-recover pala natin, kasi when we say recover, ibig sabihin, nagbayad yung customer na dati nating i-write off. So, of course, makakatanggap tayo ng cash doon. So, debit cash for 1,500 and credit accounts receivable. So, yan. So, parang nagano lang siya, no? So, accounts receivable, dinebit, is credit. So, parang tinanggal din lang natin, no? Okay. And then next, yung number 10 is, it says here, sales returns and allowances on credit sales for 6,000. Okay, allowance and returns. Okay, so we debit that, okay, for 6,000 and credit accounts receivable. Ayan. Ayan. So tinanggal natin sa accounts receivable. You know, yung sales returns and allowances, ito yung customer na nagsoli nung item na binili nila previously, kaya bawas sa sales yan, yung sales returns and allowances. And of course, bumaba rin yung nag-decrease yung kanilang receivable, no, because of that, no. Okay. So it's most probably it's a credit sales, no. Okay. And number 11, which is yung increase in allowance for credit loss, no. So mag-increase lang tayo dyan. So by recognizing bad debts expense, no. So bad debt expense for 39,357 and credit allowance for doubtful accounts for 39,357. Now, let's take a look on the balances, no? Okay, pwede na natin computein yung accounts receivable, allowance, notes receivable, and notes receivable. So the balance of accounts receivable was 672,000. Okay, so yun. So lalagay lang natin dito yun. Yun siya. Yan. And yung allowance niya, ayun. So 42,300. So ibidilawan na natin, ha. Para alam natin na ginalaw na natin siya, no? Okay, so lalagay natin dito. This is 42,300. So the balance of accounts, the balance of notes receivable is 65,400. Tapos may nakalagay dyan na 114,000. So the company is contingently liable for discounted notes receivable of 114,000. Okay, so tinanggal dito, pinaghiwala yung receivable na yan, pero dapat ipapagsamahin natin yan. So 114,000. 114,000 plus 65,400. So that's 179,400. Yan. Okay, so isasama natin yan, yung 140 na yan. So this would be, how much is this one? So this is 179. And yung notes receivable discounting, so that is 114,000, no? Okay, yung diniscount kasi natin siya. Okay? Itong 114,000. So this is so this one, so yeah, naka-disclose siya, no? Okay, 114,000. And so this 114,000 goods receivable discounted was sold without recourse, or sold with recourse. Okay, so this 114,000 is sold without recourse, with recourse. Okay, so these are the balances, no? Okay. So kunin natin dito yung number 1. So number 1, accounts receivable, nag-increase siya. Okay? So kukunin lang natin yung entry, so that is addition doon. 2,623,000. Okay? And then, of course, wala naman yung sa sales. Yung sa accounts receivable, yan, i-credit natin. So, credit, so meaning nabawasan yan, no? Okay, because it's credited. So, 2,523,000. So, this is number, yeah, sa accounts receivable pa rin siya. Ayan, so, this is 2,523,000. So, kinukuha lang natin yung in-entry natin dito, no? Okay, so highlight natin. So let's highlight it. Ayan. And then dito, in-highlight natin, naka-credit siya. So binawasan natin. Tapos allowance for doubtful accounts, naka-debit siya. Okay? So ilalagay natin dito as deduction from the allowance for doubtful accounts. Okay, so this would next is yung accounts allowance for doubtful accounts, that's 41,400, and yung so after that, okay, so after that, allowance for doubtful accounts for 41,400. So that would be a an overbalance kasi ng allowance for doubtful accounts is contra asset, no? Since this is a contra asset, is credit. So normal balance niya, of course, since a contra asset, so nakabawas siya, no? But since naka-debit siya rito, so we will add this, no? And then yung, of course, credit accounts receivable, so that would be deducted from the accounts receivable balance. And then the next one, debit cash for 87,000 and credit notes receivable for 87,000. So that would be a deduction from the notes receivable since naka-credit, no? For 87,000. And then, ito naman yung notes receivable for 216,000 and debit and credit accounts receivable for 216,000. So, punta natin dito. So, yung notes receivable, number 5, naka-debit siya. So, that's positive, no? Okay, so this is for 216,000. And this one is negative. Okay, so for 216,000. Okay, and then the next one, number 6, notes receivable discounted for 108,000 and notes receivable credit for 108,000. Okay, so nilagay natin doon sa notes receivable discounted tapos binawas natin doon sa um, ilagay natin dito sa notes receivable discounted, so may addition, tapos binawas natin yung 108 doon sa notes receivable. Ayan. And then number seven, that's accounts receivable for 6,075 and cash of 6,075. So that's an addition. No? Okay. So, yan. So mas madali siyang ilagay-lagay, i-tabulate dito kasi naka-journal entries. Now, the 8, oh, hindi pa, 7 pa pala rin. No? Okay. Notes receivable discounted of 6,000. Okay. That's a debit and credit notes receivable. So, ito yung na-dishonor na note, no? Okay. So, ilalagay natin dito. Okay. So, this would be 6,000. Ka-debit siya and credit for notes receivable for 6,000. And then number 8, that would be debit to cash for 135,200, the proceeds, no? Tapos, first debit to loss on discounting of notes receivable. Ayan. So, ito yung naapektuhan itong dalawa. Okay, as far as yung sa tabulation natin is concerned. So, debit of, no, not cash. Okay, bucket cash, no? Notes receivable discounted lang. Ayan. Note receivable for 135,000. So, these are the ones affected, no? From this entry, yung notes receivable discounted. Okay, so that is for 135,000 sa negative. Yan. So, nabawasan kasi naka-credit siya. And then the next one, okay, so ito, number 9 is debit for 15 accounts receivable and credit allowance for doubtful accounts, also for 15. Okay, so this one for 15 and credit for allowance for 15. Okay, and then number 10, meron pa. Ito, accounts receivable. Ayan. That is a credit naman yan, naka-credit. So may bawas siya dito. Ito, bawas natin dito yung accounts receivable for 15. Ayan. So ginagawa lang natin yung journal entry. Pina-plot lang natin. And then another entry, ito sa allowance accounts receivable, there's a credit for 6,000. So we will have a credit here for 6,000 deduction. And then last, so credit for allowance for doubtful accounts, that would be 39,357. Okay, so after considering those, we can now add. Okay, now after considering those adjustments, we can now proceed with the totals of the balances for accounts receivable. That would be 515,475. Allowance ending balance, adjusted balance is 41,757. Notes receivable ending balance would be 194,400. And for discount, notes receivable discounted, that would be 135,500. So these are the ending balances of the said receivables. No? accounts receivable, notes receivable, and receivable, notes receivable discounted. And so, if you have any questions, you can write your comments and any suggestions. Of course, subscribe and like this video. God bless and stay safe.